succulent follow behind. I'm going to lead us, and if I stop, if everyone can stop, because I've located based on the sound. We shouldn't cross the leopard, but if we do, don't run. I cross them fairly often, and I blind them with the light, and then get back to the car. But usually they're more afraid of you than anything.
Was your first time seeing her with the baby?
With this one, yeah.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, her pup last year died in the drought, but she's the first pangolin I ever saw tagged on Okonjima.
Oh, cool.
And so she has a special place in my heart. She's one of my favorites, and she brought her first baby to my feet just after it was born. It was, maybe, based on the sizes I've seen, probably less than a week old. And she came to my feet with it.
That's really cool.
My name is Kelsey. I run the AfriCat Pangolin project. I studied zoology and environmental biology in the United States, and my goal was to always work in endangered species conservation. Following open doors led me to Namibia working with cheetahs, but my main goal was to do my graduate studies in Namibia, doing something that's meaningful for conservation. And following different paths led me to the AfriCat project, and because no research has been done in Namibia that's been very in-depth on the pangolin is what kind of drew me to getting more involved with pangolin. A lot of people don't know much about pangolin, and it's quite interesting. They're the most trafficked animal in the world, more than rhino. And even though they're that trafficked, a lot of people still don't know what a pangolin is, and those that do most likely haven't seen one. Most species are predominantly nocturnal, so they're hard to find, not easy to see. In Asia, there's 4 species, and in Africa, there's 4 species. So in total, 8 species worldwide. In Africa, very, very little research has been done. The species that we have here in Namibia is the Temminck ground pangolin, and this species has had the most research done out of all African species, but it's still extremely limited. This is the first in-depth project in Namibia. The project that I'm doing here is looking at the general ecology of the ground pangolin. This is the only species we have here in Namibia is the Temminck ground pangolin. They've adapted to live in an arid environment. All other species in Africa, the other 3, they are living in areas with much higher rainfall. Here in Africa, with them being active at night, there's lots of predators. It's a very challenging species to study, as I've even seen from my experience. In the beginning, we had about a 50% tag fall-off rate, so it kind of has scared a lot of people away from doing the research. But over time, we've realized, okay, we need something a bit more flexible than rigid, and since we've changed the design and found the right tag, we haven't had any fall-offs. And so not only are we looking at the basic ecology, but this technology development is a huge part, because it does kind of off-put people and off-put research, which is very valuable for a species that's under such a high threat. So this past year, the drought was extremely devastating. We lost over 50% of our research individuals. None of the pups survived, and most pangolin under 6 kilos died. It was very dry, and their preferred species went so deep underground to wait out the drought they couldn't find them. So we saw a complete shift in what they were eating, and it just wasn't enough. They were basically starving to death. Because they eat live ants and termites and larvae and eggs, there's not much you can do. It was very heartbreaking, but it's good data for us to kind of learn how these different things impact them. So climate change and drought has a huge impact. But from that, we've learned a lot. The average number of live pangolin ceased is about 1 per week in Namibia alone. And so basically, you know, it's very tragic with rhino, they get killed for their horn. Well, the main defense of a pangolin is to roll into a tight ball. And so the poachers just pick them up, throw them in a sack, and smuggle them wherever they're gonna, usually they'll take them and try and sell them on the black market. It's not as premeditated as a rhino, it's very opportunistic. But these individuals are then still living, but if they're seized by the police, if they're lucky, you know, they get to go into rehabilitation and then they must be released. And pangolin are very territorial, and then they get released in the territory of another pangolin. They might get released in an area that's not suitable. So I'm hoping to find out what recommendations we can make, if we can identify good release sites, these types of things. Especially looking at the home ranges, social dynamics, and overlap. Looking at, is there anything suitable we can do with these pangolin that are seized live? What's the best chance we can give them for survival? As I said, not much has been done on pangolin. So I'm looking at a lot of different things, including spatial ecology, behavioral ecology, pup rearing, a lot of technology development. Because right now we're very limited in transmitter size by battery. And because the pangolin are small and they're nocturnal, there's not much microtechnology available. Most of the technology available for birds is amazingly small, but it runs on solar power, which is not possible for the pangolin. And if we're releasing a pangolin and we want to see how it's doing, it must be a satellite tracker, and that uses a lot of battery power, so we're very limited. So because they have scales, they don't have fur, they don't insulate themselves very well, and they don't have to drink water. They get all of their moisture needed from eating the ants, termites, eggs, and larvae. If they're presented with water, they'll gladly drink. They love the mud baths. They love to roll in the mud. It helps with parasites as well, but they don't have to drink water. So they also have kind of evolved and adapted to manage, you know, their energy usage. So they're not going to be active in really hot times of the day, and they're also not going to be active really cool at night. So the peak trafficking season is actually winter, because the pangolin will shift their activity to the afternoon hours. It is possible to see a pangolin at any time of the day in the winter, but more likely the older adults, you'll only find them active late at night. Even in the winter, they don't start moving until just before sunset. But the young ones, you could find them any time of the day, but typically they don't like to be out above 30 degrees. It's a bit too hot for them. So traditionally in Namibia, pangolin have always been used for bushmeat. Different cultures and tribes have different beliefs on if it's having a spiritual value, if it's having a medicinal value. I've also heard people tell me that the pangolin are bringing the drought. Unfortunately, it's actually the drought causes them to be more active in the day, and without grass, they're more visible. but that means they must kill them. But all of these different things that I mentioned that have been going on in Africa for forever, basically, haven't put pressure on pangolin. All of the ground pangolin in Namibia is only considered vulnerable. It is Appendix 1 with CITES, which means no trade, no sale of any kind is allowed. But the biggest problem is traditional Chinese medicine. The pangolin in Asia have been so over-trafficked and so poached that they're all critically endangered or endangered. Not only are they used for traditional Chinese medicine, they're also viewed as a delicacy. And that's put a huge pressure on Asian pangolin, because to have them as a delicacy, they're actually kept alive. And it's viewed as a status symbol for someone in Asia to eat this pangolin in a restaurant, even though it's against the law. A lot of restaurants will offer a live pangolin, and it's killed at the table for them to eat, and it costs a lot of money. So it puts a huge value on a live pangolin in Asia. So populations there have just plummeted, and that's on top of habitat loss and everything else. Now the trade is turning to Africa, and it's also coming to Namibia. The pangolin didn't have a value before, so people would just eat it for bushmeat, and like I said, there wasn't a big pressure. But now people will traffic and poach pangolin because now they're becoming more and more valuable every day as the trafficking is increasing and more pressure is being put on Africa. There's more and more electric fencing going up, and low-lying electric fencing is also a huge killer of pangolin. They're facing a lot of threats, and their vulnerable status has been given even though no populations or figures are known for how many are around. But they do know that numbers are decreasing, and for a species to be declared Appendix 1 with CITES, it's said that that species is threatened with extinction because they're being trafficked at such high levels. Namibia is ahead of a lot of other countries. Right now, they're taking on the trafficking like head on. There is a campaign that offers a reward if it leads to the arrest of the person that's smuggling the pangolin. And they've increased the jail sentence and fines. So it's the equivalent of having rhino horn. So if you have a pangolin scale, a pangolin, any part of a pangolin, whole pangolin, or just a piece of a scale, it is the same offense as having rhino horn. And I think that's a step in the right direction. And I think there needs to be much more awareness, which is hopefully what this will bring, some more awareness to it, and continued research. And we're learning more every day. But it's especially rewarding knowing that whatever I do is going to help the conservation of pangolin. We just must keep working to help the pangolin and learn more about them.